The morning started like any other. I was standing on my front porch, looking across the fields my family had owned for decades, when 3 black SUVs pulled into my driveway. Behind them came a fourth vehicle. A woman stepped out first. I recognized her immediately. She was Karen, the HOA president who had spent the last 6 months insisting that my farm was somehow subject to neighborhood rules. But this time, she wasn't alone. 3 lawyers stepped out behind her, each carrying thick folders. Karen walked toward me with a confident smile. "Good morning," she said. "We're here to finalize the transfer." I stared at her. "Transfer of what?" She pointed toward my fields. "Your property." I almost laughed. "This is my farm." One of the lawyers opened his folder. According to the HOA's documents, portions of this land were incorporated into the community decades ago. I took the papers and looked at them. The language was complicated, but there was one problem. The legal description didn't match my property. I told them they were standing on privately owned land. Karen smiled. "You've been warned several times." Then she said the words that changed everything. "You have until noon to leave." I looked at the 3 lawyers, then at Karen, then back at my farm. I calmly told them, "Fine, let's go to court." Karen laughed. "You think you can scare us?" "No," I replied. "I think you're going to regret coming here." 2 hours later, we were inside the courthouse. Karen arrived with the same 3 lawyers. They were confident. They had documents. They had arguments. And they clearly believed they were about to take control of my farm. Then the courtroom doors opened. Everyone stood. The judge entered. The hearing began. The HOA's attorney presented their case first. They claimed an old development agreement gave the association control over my land. They argued that my property had been included in a larger community plan. Karen sat behind them, smiling. Then it was my turn. I placed one document on the table, my original deed. The judge studied it. Then he asked the HOA lawyer to show him where my parcel number appeared in their documents. The lawyer searched through the paperwork. Nothing. The judge asked again. Still nothing. Then he compared the old development map with the county property records. The boundaries were completely different. My farm wasn't part of the HOA. Not even close. Karen's smile disappeared. But I wasn't finished. I produced another document. A recorded easement from decades earlier. It showed exactly where the HOA had access and where that access ended. The judge looked at it carefully. Then he looked toward Karen. "Why did your association send representatives onto this property?" Karen started explaining. She claimed there had been a misunderstanding. The judge wasn't convinced. He turned back to the lawyers. "You brought 3 attorneys here to establish ownership over land that your own documents don't identify." The courtroom went silent. Then came the final surprise. The judge asked me one question. "Are you familiar with the court's property procedures?" I smiled. "Yes, Your Honor." Then I reached into my briefcase. Inside was an official judicial robe. Karen stared at it. The 3 lawyers froze. I explained that I wasn't the judge in this case. I had been appointed as a visiting magistrate for another proceeding that morning, and had simply been helping with courthouse administrative matters before the hearing. Karen had apparently seen me earlier wearing the robe, and assumed something completely different. But the real shock wasn't the robe. It was the paperwork. The court ruled that the HOA had no ownership claim over my farm. Their attempted transfer was rejected. The trespass notices were withdrawn, and the court ordered the HOA to stop representing my private property as community-owned. Karen sat completely silent. 3 lawyers had arrived expecting to take my farm. They left carrying the same folders they brought in. Only now, those folders contained a legal defeat. I returned home that evening and stood at the edge of my field. The land looked exactly the same. The fences, the barn, the old trees, everything was still there. But something had changed. For months, Karen had acted like confidence was the same thing as ownership. That day, she learned the difference. And I learned something too. When someone tells you they own your property, don't argue louder. Check the deed, check the records, and let the documents speak. If you enjoyed this HOA revenge story, like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from.